Welcome to the Hank Cisco Show. Ladies and gentlemen, I had the privilege and the honor of interviewing former mayor of New York City, Rudy Giuliani, Senator Rick Santorum, and talk host Mike Sparkanish, who were at the Center Square Firehouse. And they spoke about the 911, the problems that occurred there, and also they talked about security, our security nationwide, and it was very informal, very good. And I want to compliment the Center Square Fire Department for a wonderful job, organized, and was really on the ball. And one of the firemen spoke about one of his co-workers or firemen that was killed in Iraq, and that was really a sad thing. But one of the key things that while Mike Sparkanish was announcing, all of a sudden the fire whistle went off, and the firemen, about 4 or 5 of them, had to dash out and leave, and then a couple more left, and it was really something. So here we saw something live. We saw the firemen put on their gear and take off, and sirens blasting, So that, I thought that was so great. And but I heard, and Rudy Giuliani, I guess he's my hero. I read his book. If you get an opportunity to get his book, it's called Leadership, and talking about a police department, how he straightened New York City out. I remember when I used to go there, it used to be dirty and everybody would be panhandling, but when he was mayor, he straightened that all out, so he was very good. I also want to compliment the Norristown High School staff, the students that went out there in the crowd right afterwards. There was they were late and they had to leave, so I stood by the door, and the 2 cameramen for the students, we blocked the door, and so we got our interviews, and they did a real good job. I want to thank Al DiGennaro from the Italian Heritage, who was able to give me the opportunity to go out there to tape that. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I really want to thank John Doyle, who taped the whole thing. But everybody enjoyed it. I mean, it was a good thing coming from the heart with people that lived it, and are every day protecting us, the firemen. And I just want to throw another bouquet at the Center Square Fire Department. So, ladies and gentlemen, just sit back and enjoy this. Really, it's really it makes me feel so good to be able to interview these 3 gentlemen. Okay, and thank you very much. And here we go.
I feel like I'm back in Brooklyn. They're all the same. They're very similar. I've many times as a youngster, I used to go to firehouses because youngsters are really impressed with firefighters. I had an uncle who was a firefighter when I was growing up who got seriously injured. So from the time I was about 4 or 5 years old, firefighters have been like major heroes for me. Then when I was the mayor, I spent a lot of time in firehouses and witnessed very similar thing to what we just saw. Maybe we were having a memorial service for a firefighter a year after he had been killed in the line of duty, putting up a plaque, and then there'd be a call, and you'd be in the middle of dedicating the plaque, and half the firefighters would walk out without missing a beat and go to their call, whether it was a fire or a medical emergency. So it's it's wonderful to see it, isn't it? It's a wonderful thing to see. And then you realize what they're doing every time they do that. It's very exciting, and it's very interesting to see. But every time they're doing that, they're putting their lives at risk. And that really is a remarkable thing. I mean, they're living out the idea that they're going to take a risk with their lives to protect the lives of other people. And they do it every day, sometimes once a day, 2 times a day, 3 times a day. They never know. And then some of them pay the ultimate sacrifice. I mean, some of them lose their lives. On September 11, it was a horrible number all at one time. But that's essentially what they live through every single day. So it's wonderful to be here with them. And it gives you a great sense of how well served we are by them. So thank you very much for allowing us to be with you. You are truly, you're the real heroes. God bless you.
In an era of, you'll pardon this, but the blow-dried politicians, I have great respect for an individual who investigates an issue, makes up his mind based on the facts, and then stands his ground and doesn't put a finger to the air and test the political waters and assess polling information or do a focus group, but stands up and proudly says, this is how I see a particular issue, and I'm proud now to defend my view.
We have done a lot for our first responders. We passed and implemented a fire grants program and other programs that have tremendously benefited firefighters and first responders here in Pennsylvania, to the tune of more money has come to Pennsylvania than any other state in the country, and more grants have been awarded to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania than any other state. Now, some would say because maybe our fire companies are more in need. I would beg to differ. I think our fire companies are one of the best in preparedness and have submitted grants and proposals and competitively won those because we have the finest group of firefighters anywhere in the country.
My name is Don Lynch. I'm one of the career firefighters from Whitpain Township. I wanted to take this opportunity to say a few words about a true American hero and friend, John Kulik. John was killed in action in Iraq last August. John Kulik was a career firefighter for Whitpain Township Fire Department. He had been employed here since August 1998. John was a nationally certified firefighter and emergency medical technician. John was the most senior member of our department, in which he served as a career firefighter supervisor. He was the lead architect and backbone behind the design and outfitting of our newest rescue pumper, Squad 33, which is outside. John was also the former president of our IFF local and the founding member of the Whitpain Township Professional Firefighters Association. John grew up in the Abington and Hatboro area of Montgomery County. John's father, Jim Kulik, always tells stories about how John, as a child, would ride his bike down to the local firehouse to watch the fire trucks leave for calls. As a teenager, John became a volunteer firefighter with Enterprise Fire Company of Hatboro, where over the years he rose to the position of deputy chief. I first met John while working as a firefighter at Willow Grove Naval Air Base, also in Montgomery County, and John and I instantly became friends, as do most people when they meet him. He just had something about him. After I was hired here at Whitpain, John and I once again paired up as partners and stayed as such for nearly 5 years. I remember the days directly following the 9/11 attacks and watching the events unfold on TV with John. I distinctly remember the brothers and sisters of New York City Fire and Police Departments and Mayor Guliani for keeping level heads and doing the best anyone could under such circumstances while attempting to manage and mitigate such a catastrophe. Everyone from around the country felt their pain and their heartache, but for some reason, the loss of the 343 brother firefighters and the thousands of civilians hit John a little harder than most. John had always felt a connection with the military since childhood, but never pursued it because of his dedication to the firefighting field. After the events of 9/11, John followed the beginnings of the Iraq War even closer. I truly believe a part of his soul was awakened, the military part. After doing a lot of soul searching and researching, something John always did for any decision he was made, no matter if it was buying a new car or designing a fire truck, John always did his research. John planted his feet firm and decided to join the Pennsylvania Army National Guard. I, too, always had the same interest in the military. So on March 10th, 2003, right after work, we left this station. John and I drove over to the Plymouth Meeting Armory to enlist in the Army National Guard, just weeks before the beginning of the Iraq War. Unfortunately, I did not pass the strict weight limit policy the military had. I had a few extra pounds on back then. After successfully returning from 18 weeks of boot camp, Private John Kulik returned to work here at Whitpain. In a later conversation with U.S. Army First Sergeant Walls, John's company officer, he recalls asking John how he liked boot camp, and John's reply was, "I had fun, Sergeant." First Sergeant Walls told me that after 15 years in the military, he has never had anyone come back and call boot camp fun. John was a true military man at heart. In the spring of 2004, John was deployed with the Alpha Company of the 1st Battalion of the 111th Mechanized Infantry Unit. John returned home for 2 weeks of leave in June of '05. During this time, he did me an honor of becoming my youngest son's godfather. Shortly after, John then returned to his duty. fighting on the front lines of Iraq. On August 10th, 2005, a morning that John's family and friends will never forget, we learned that John was killed in action the night before. On August 9th, John and his unit were out on patrols when his unit came under attack from insurgents. John's Humvee was destroyed by an IED that was buried in the roadway. John and 3 other soldiers were killed in that attack. John died fighting for his country and fulfilling one of his 3 loves he had in life. John loved the fire service, John loved the military, but most of all, John loved his 8-year-old daughter, Amanda. John was a loving and devoted father. John and Amanda loved spending time together, and especially fishing. John was a terrific dad. He never did anything without first thinking about Amanda and her welfare. John was a hero before he enlisted in the Army National Guard. He served here as a firefighter EMT, where he helped save countless civilian lives over the years. But he became a hero once again, serving our country and saving the lives of fellow soldiers and civilians of a different country. For all of the men and women who we call heroes and who lay down their lives and commit the ultimate sacrifice, no matter if they're wearing a firefighter's uniform, a police officer's uniform, or a military uniform, we cannot forget about the ones who are left behind, the ones who have to continue living without the loved one. We cannot forget about our heroes' families. We must do everything we can locally and nationally to help and support them during the time of loss. I salute you, John Kulik, and all of America's uniformed heroes who are protecting us overseas and here on our homeland. God bless you all. Thank you.
And one of the toughest things you have to do is respond when you get a notice, and I got one just on the way over here of a young man who died serving our country in Iraq or Afghanistan. There's no easy way to say, I'm sorry for your loss. There's no easy way to communicate the appreciation of a grateful nation for the sacrifice to John's 8-year-old little girl. But I just want you to know, for her to know, that her daddy died for a very important reason. Mayor Guliani laid it out very well. He died for the national security of this country and for the stability and security of our nation. And sometimes it doesn't look like that or sound like that based on what is being reported in the press and the polls are saying, but I think he knew, and those of us who have the responsibility to make those votes know how important this battle is. And we certainly appreciate her sacrifice and your sacrifice. And please pass that on.
I remember as mayor of New York City how much I relied on our senators. Most of the time that I was the mayor, I had a Republican senator, Senator D'Amato, and a Democratic senator, Senator Moynihan, and I relied on them greatly. Then for 1 year I had Hillary. and there's a book that just came out, Michael, that does point out the one thing that Hillary and I do have in common. We're both Yankee fans. I became a Yankee fan growing up in New York. She became a Yankee fan growing up in Chicago. And we face a lot of issues. The economy, our society, our values, and everything else. But the single most important one that we face is our defense.
Now, you find that to be incredulous at some point, that you can think a group of people who live, in most cases, in remote places, in caves and in primitive structures, could have designs to dominate the world, to control and dominate the world in this modern society. How could such a group of people fathom that, and how could we as Americans take them as a threat? Well, I would just suggest that they have been able to accomplish things that many enemies in the past have never been able to accomplish, one of which was, of course, to attack us here in the United States. Because unlike the previous generations, they've had access to technology. You can't stop the internet. They try to jam it, but they can't.
You know, whether we have another terrorist attack or not, I pray that we don't, but as a rational person, I plan for its happening. So I think that's the only way that we can deal with this. We have to assume that we're going to be attacked again, and then pray that that's not the case, and do everything to prevent it.
It's been an honor and a privilege to serve the people here in Montgomery County, this tremendous, great county in suburban Philadelphia. It's been an honor and privilege to serve the people of Pennsylvania over these last 12 years. I look forward to your support to make sure that we can do that for 6 more. Thank you, and God bless.
Oh, Jim Matthews, running for Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania. Jim, a couple of words here. We've got high school students here. She's involved in,
But Hank,
interested in politics.
you know me from being on your show with your students. I'm incapable of a few words. I'm more than capable of saying a lot, but very often very little. This is terrific because here in Whitpain and in Center Square, to get someone who, frankly, has embodied since September 12th, 2001, the American spirit as far as the spirit in defense of our homeland. We were all in great shock, obviously, September 11th. I, for one, and I can speak for most of the leaders in the East, did not anticipate something like this. What had happened in Oklahoma City had been an eye-opener to, I thought, perhaps domestic discontent to show the ability of what one or two individuals could do. I truly did not expect something to come from overseas. I don't think anyone did. And in such a coordinated and terroristic approach, it was so inhumane. And I think it was beyond anybody's expectation. What I think was not beyond expectation was having a leader step forward. Somehow this nation always finds in their midst someone to answer the bell. Not to use your expression, Hank, but answering the bell. But we experienced this in our greatest times of struggle with Washington, with Lincoln, frankly with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and Harry Truman. People were answering the bell when there was a crisis. And whereas he was not a military leader or a national elected leader, Rudy Giuliani, I think, embodied what the civilian is capable in this country. This country does not have a special class of leaders. It has normal Americans who step forward and perform abnormally in a crisis. And I always get chills when I'm in the presence of somebody like him, somebody who can step forward when the time demands it. It just goes to show us the respect we should have for one another as Americans, because be it in my generation, the next generation, or my grandchildren's generation, we don't know who those next leaders are who are going to step forward in time of crisis. We know, as sure as we breathe fresh air, there are going to be future crises, and let's hope that this country can keep cultivating with our standards the quality of individuals such as Rudy, who will be able to step forward and lead us through our next crisis.
And you're going to be our next Lieutenant Governor, okay? And he's been on our TV show, or the Hank Cisco show, and his little brother, or your big brother, is Chris Matthews on Hardball, okay? So thanks a lot, and thanks a lot for.
Always a pleasure, Hank. Thanks for
Okay,
being here.
and we'll see it in September, okay? We're going to see you on the TV show, okay? Cisco Kid returns. Righto, thanks a lot. Right, she's interested in politics, okay? Got any last minute instructions?
Do I? I think I would just say get involved early, because that's what I did, and I had great experiences when I was young. And when you're young, everybody lets you do all sorts of things that they'll never let you do when you're older. That's my advice in a nutshell, Hank.
Good. Okay, thanks a lot. Right. Thanks a lot. Mayor. Hank, I got some students here, the Hank Cisco show. Sure. Listen, we got a lot in common, right? I was born in Brooklyn.
Right.
I used to box in New York.
Wow.
I used to work out in Stillman's gym.
I can feel that. Look at that.
And I read your book, and all the fighters, Marciano, I was a stablemate.
Right.
Al Weil, okay?
Right.
Willie Pep, I saw him fight Sandy Saddler in Yankee Stadium.
Wow.
Remember?
Well, you go back a little.
Oh, man, New York was. I lived
It
in
looks
Miami.
like it could still fight, though.
He's still bobbing away.
Look, look at that hand.
I'm the ambassador of Norristown. They don't.
So we have to
the
get
mayor's.
I apologize.
The mayor got in some kind of trouble, so now I'm the ambassador. That's something new.
Mr. Ambassador, it's great to meet you.
Keep bobbing and weaving. Right.
Hey, Mayor.
Thanks a lot.
Mayor!
It's the Hank Cisco show. Norristown. You came to Norristown. Here's our camera for the Norristown High School, the students. And you came to Norristown, our Columbus Day.
Yes. and wish you all the luck in the world. Thank you. And next time you come to North and in the area, come. I want you on my Hank Cisco show. Okay. Great. You did a nice job. Keep bobbing and weaving, and
Okay, don't worry.
keep punching.
We'll keep punching too.
Right.